All right. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. In the chat box, can you let me know if you guys can hear me okay? Oh, good. All right, good. I was on and then it just totally went away. You gotta love Zoom. Awesome. Very good. All right. So Liliana is my moderator, and I believe she wanted to go over some stuff. Liliana, did you still need to go over some things?
No, you could just start sharing your screen.
Okay. All right. So let's go to share screen.
Liliana, we need to spotlight the interpreter along with the speaker.
Okay.
Okay, great. So I have put this link on my site here. You're gonna get it. It's gonna be like a website. One of the reasons I keep it as a website, my Google Deck here, is because I'm constantly updating and making new changes. As you know, education is always changing. So that way you automatically get those updated changes. So some people have asked me, can I just have your deck? The reason I don't really have a deck is because you might have my old version. And so this way you can always stay up to date on what I'm training on. So my name is Jenny Geiford. I am originally from Southern California. I recently just moved to Florida, and I'm actually sitting outside right now hoping we don't get a thunderstorm. I'm currently going to be teaching 7th and 8th grade math at Pinnacle Academy, which is a private school here in the Sarasota area. But I am still a professor for National University. And I also just got another position as a professor at Alliant University, if any of you are familiar with those universities. And I was for a while there an induction coach for RCOE, where I worked with secondary math teachers. Now, being a math teacher, this training is not about math. This training is about standards-based grading and how you can grade with equity and non-bias issues that we run across a lot of times with grading. Looking at what the child truly knows and not the other stuff that can bring down a grade. Unfortunately, a lot of traditional grading does impact a student's grade because they're constantly being deducted for things that are behavior-wise. And we're going to go over that. So if you've never done standards-based grading, there's lots of research out there. I'm going to kind of give you the cliff notes or the preview to this. This is something that is near and dear to my heart. I use it even with my college students because I want to grade with efficacy, and I want to grade with true knowledge of what they really do know. If the kid does not know, then that should show that. But a child who is stellar in your class should not be getting a C because they turned in a few things late, things like that. So we're going to talk about that. And I may rub some of you wrong a little bit, and you might go, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And that's okay. Believe me, it took me a while to get to know all this as well. Here is my contact information. I welcome anybody to email me. You can also follow me on Twitter. So if down the road, you want to email me because you want to implement this, let me know. And it does take baby steps, but some of us might want to just dive right into it this next year. So I'm going to shorten my screen there. There we go, so I can see everything. So how do we reach all learners, really? And then how do we grade them? So how do we really help those kids who need the most help? A lot of our traditional teaching is teaching to the middle. And we kind of hope we catch the ones that aren't quite getting it, and we hope we don't bore the heck out of the ones who totally get it. So first we need to change our mindset on how we look at education and our actual teaching lessons. And one of the things people always hit me up with was, I don't have time for that. Jenny, I just don't have time to come up with all these different lessons for all my different kids. And then I tell them, hey, my friend, I had, when I taught at Corona Norco, 250 middle schoolers. And I was able to differentiate my instruction to help my lower performing students or and sometimes my special ed was not always at my lower performing, but sometimes some of their disabilities might put them down there where they are struggling, especially with math. And then how do I also differentiate for those GATE students, the ones who are gifted or just ones who are totally understand everything and they get it really quick? So one of the things I did was when I switched over to standards-based grading, I also had to switch over my way of how I deliver lessons. So I'm going to go over a little bit of that, and then you'll see why that set up perfectly with standards-based grading. So in order to truly say that you have reached the needs of all your learners, you need to be able to say those three things there. And you can do all three of those in a class period. My class periods were 45 minutes long. I had about 42 kids in my class. My classes were in accumulation of special ed, ELL, gifted and high thinking, and your everyday child. And it still worked. One of the things I would always do is a warm up. With standards-based grading, it's all about data. And I know data can sometimes be that word that no teacher wants to hear. We're like, oh my gosh, more data. You know, it's like every staff meeting you go to, here's data, here's data. Well, data's great if you know how to read it. If you struggle with reading your own data, then maybe your data is giving you the wrong information. All right, so one thing I would do is all of my students would take a blind pre-assessment. This was not graded as an academic grade. It was graded for effort. It was graded for behavior, like a behavioral grade. Some of us do some sort of participation grade. So they could still see it in the grade book that I did see them do it. I did see them try, but they knew that it wasn't going to hurt their grade. But the reason I documented the score was because I want to see their area of growth. So let's say they take this pre-assessment, which is something I have never taught. I want to truly know how much they already know from prior experience. So we would sit down, take this test, and I would make it something fun, something like on Quizlet, Kahoot, quizzes. It didn't have to be your boring old, paper and pencil, but of course it could, but I would change it up. The kids like to have a little bit of fun with it. And I told them, I said, try your best on it because I really want to see where you can improve, okay? And I want to see what standards you can improve on. The pre-assessment was created using standards that we were working on in that lesson. And I'm going to break down how I broke apart those standards and how I was able to create those teacher warm-up pre-assessments. Now, this is a little something I do in another training. I'm not going to go over my rotations, but I did use rotations with my classes where the students went to different stations each day. They went to one station a day, not multiple, and they worked at a station, and in that station I was able to give that differentiated instruction. So I knew who was going to be at that station that day. I was able to create a lesson for that number of students. And my groups were no larger than 6. You really don't want to have large groups. So I had about 5 stations to be able to spread out all 42 kids. But if you're interested in learning about stations, that's another training, but you can always email me. I'd be more than happy to go over it with you. So then you have to assess. So after you do the pre-assessment, you do the teaching, which in my case was the stations. Then you come to an assessment again. Now this assessment does go in the grade book, but it's temporary. One thing about standards-based grading is that you are allowing students to learn. It's about learning. It's about seeing how you can take what you've started with and improve upon it. So you're not constantly getting, bad grades and not having a chance to fix them, because learning is a progress. It's not something we all get. And I'm sure many of you have taken courses where at first you had no idea what they were talking about. Think of a foreign language class. I had a foreign language class in college, and the lady came out speaking full-blown Spanish. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to pass this class. Had she kept the grade that I received on my very first test as that official grade, my grade would have been awful. But she allowed me to keep revisiting that same quiz or same test throughout the course so that I can improve upon it. So the more practice I got in hearing Spanish and the more practice I got in saying Spanish words, I did better on that assessment. It is a progressional grade. And you want to think of it as that. Now, of course, there are some people who say, Jenny, I just can't have them do 15 different redos. That's just crazy. I totally get that. So you can set a hard, like, learn by this point, friend, or we're just going to have to come back to it at another time. So what I do with my students is I give you 2 tries. After 2 tries, I'm going to force you to stop. We're going to continue on with the work. I'm going to work with you in my rotation groups, and I'm going to keep helping you. I'm going to have you come to tutoring if you need it. And then when the unit is done, I will then ask, if you want to come in after school, I will let you retake one of those quizzes that you got a bad grade on. And that way I'm not taking up class time. The kid has to come see me on their own private time. And a lot of kids would show up for those. And the kids who didn't show up were pretty satisfied with their grade of where they had fallen anyway. So they figured, I'm good. It wasn't that bad of a grade. It didn't hit me down that hard. So being able to assess and see if their students have reached that true standards mastery. All right, so, and I kind of went over this just right now. You want to reevaluate that data and look for that growth. Okay, so what is standards-based grading? I mean, like, where does this really fall into place, and how can I implement this in my classroom? Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be difficult because as a teacher of 20 years and a professor, I was gun-ho traditional grading, 90 to 100 A, 80 to 89 B, that's just, it was ingrained in me. Why? Because that's how I grew up. That's how I was graded. And there's a lot of flaws in that. And you've heard probably people talk about equity in grading, where why does the F have 50 points? There's a 50-point deduction there because, Fs usually start like around 50 and then they go down to 0. That's a huge drop in a grade. So when you give a student a 0, it kills their grade. And I'm going to show you some data on that here. All right. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to shift your mindset. Okay. So there are some things that we do as teachers, and I'm guilty, 100% guilty. And I still try to catch myself for not doing it. Of these things here on the left. All right. Does your grade reflect behavior? What is behavior? I'm talking about missing assignments, things coming in late. Not completing it, not showing work, forgot their name. I mean, 100 things I've heard teachers say, I take points off for that. I take points off for that. Okay, but does the child know the standard? And then they go, well, yeah, they got them all right. Then why are they getting a D? And then they can't debate that. You give them the A, but their participation grade is a D. And then they go, oh, okay, but it should affect their academic grades, so that encourages them and motivates them. When has a D ever motivated you to do better? Honestly, think about your principal coming in to evaluate you and they gave you the worst evaluation ever. How do you feel? Do you want to yes, I'm going to do better next time. I'm going to do it. I'm going to rock it. No, most of us are like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was that bad. Let them redo it. Now, if the principal came up to you and says, look, I'm going to come back in 2 weeks and let's see if you've taken some of my suggestions. We'll throw this evaluation in the trash. I'll write you a whole new one. That's motivation. Okay. All right. There you go. All right. Quantity. Get out of the quantity. I was so guilty of this. I actually one time added up all the assignments I was grading for my 250 students a day. I was grading about 3,000 papers a week. That's insane. With all my other jobs and being a mom of 2 kids, that was not working. It's not quantity. And some people think, oh, the more grades I put in the grade book, which is my thinking, used to be, the more balanced their grade will be. No, not necessarily, because grades are points, and you can have one grade be 20 points and the next one be 10, next one be 5. You've unbalanced yourself. They're all over the place. All right, so take quantity out and make it equality, and quality. All right, so you want it to be where it's equal for their learning ability, not equal for all students, because education's not a one size fits all. You want your lessons to be equal to their learning ability. So if you have a child who's struggling, don't give them something they're going to fail. Give them something in that standard that they can work on, that they can then later show progress on. But if you hit them with the hardest thing right from the start, 1, you've killed their motivation. 2, you're not really assessing what they do know because you have no data. So give them something at their level, but in the standard, okay? And I'll show you how we break down standards. And then take it from there. And then you coach the kid on, you know what, next time you're gonna rock this thing. You've shown me I can take you up a step. And the kid's like, what? Yeah, man, you did so good. I'm gonna kick you up a notch. And then you give them the next harder one. And then you give them the real harder one, which the real harder one's probably what you gave to the whole class. But they think they've made it. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for quality lessons and quality work. It's not about the journey. It's not about getting through the pacing guide. It's about the destination. A destination is mastering the standard. Okay. What do they need to know in order to be successful in the next year? Do you have to cover every single standard? Of course not. Please don't. Okay. I hate when I look at pacing guides and they literally have every single page of the textbook. There's no need for that. You don't need all that. Okay. What you need are essentials. Now, if you have more time or you can do rotations, you're able to embed in a little bit extra stuff there. But really, you want to look at a standard, see what they really need to know, and that's what you focus on. You work from the end forward, which I know a lot of you know that journey right there, because we're all used to look at the assessment, work our way backwards. Instead of individual preference, you're looking at common agreement. So instead of, well, this kid, needs this, or this kid needs this. No, if a kid needs a calculator to do well, give the whole class a calculator. Just make it common in your classroom. Just make it, a social thing. Try not to make kids feel left out or labeled, right? And then you guys can read the rest here. I just don't want to take up too much time, but this is the shift your mind really needs to work on. Are you going to hit all of these right away? Probably not. This takes time. My first thing was, I was like, I'm going to work on that behavior. I'm going to stop taking off 10% because it was late. I'm going to stop, giving them a 0 because it's missing. Okay. Do I accept late work? Yes. Do I penalize them for it? Academically? No. In their participation grade? Yes. Okay. What about missing assignments? I don't give them a 0. What I do is I start writing them a list. And then they are forced, once they get to 4 missings, I call home, tell them they need to stay with me after school. They're going to work right next to me at my desk, and we're going to get those 4 assignments done. And if they don't show up, there's a parent conference involved there. Okay. And I could go into more discipline issues there, but honestly, a lot of the parents are like, yes, please. Because parents don't want to work on the missings at home. They don't know what you're teaching, especially middle school math. They're like, I haven't seen this math in forever. I get it. I totally get it. So let me work with them, but it's going to come on their own time. So here's a little learning cycle, kind of a Cliff Notes version of what I was just showing you or telling you about, is you want to look at teacher focuses instruction on the standard. Again, it's not, busy work. Okay, let's just say it. It's not the busy work. It's not the stuff you give a sub the day you're absent. Now, those things are great for sub days. Give them the cool coloring activity where they have to solve the problems and color for it. That's not really testing standards. That's just testing proficiency and routine and monotony, okay? What you really want to work on is your lesson hits the standard in several different ways, all right? You want to then look, is there learning? Are students learning the skills to meet those standards? Are they getting the strategies? Are they getting the notes that are going to make them understand this better and remember this, retain the information? And then you go into that assessing piece. That assessing piece is so key because it's data, all right? Now, you may go around this cycle several times, and I did. In one unit, I probably went around this cycle 3 times, where I assessed them. I didn't see this data that I wanted. All right, we're back at it again. I'm going to change up my lessons a little bit. Maybe I'm going to tweak this, how I teach the lesson. Maybe I'm going to give a better rotation period, something along those lines, to really make sure I get the data I'm looking for. Now, am I looking for straight A's? Of course not. What I'm looking for is a common bell curve, that I have kids getting it, I have kids excelling at it, and I have kids who are struggling. That's what you want to see. You don't want to see that everybody's excelling, because then you realize maybe I'm not really teaching all the parts of the standard because they're all getting it. Okay. And you don't want to see them all on the other end either, where they're all failing. That's not okay either. Okay. And then you have your grading and how you look at those actual grades. So this is a little kind of notes version I stole from a friend on standards-based grading and how it looks at measuring students' proficiency on well-determined course objectives. So again, you're looking at what you really need to see. So let's look at traditional grading system, the very first one. So based on assessments such as quizzes, homework projects, etc., 1 grade entry per assessment. They got an A, you give them the A. They got the F, you give them the F. That was it. That's traditional grading. Now, you might have a teacher who's nice and allows redos, but typically, back in the old days, when I was a kid growing up, we didn't get redos. That was your grade. Have a good day. You're done. So obviously, all this practice you did, all this homework, all this other stuff, here comes the test. You failed the test. That's your grade. Well, maybe I just didn't understand the test. Maybe I wasn't feeling well. Maybe I'm not a test taker. Maybe I have anxiety. Maybe I needed more time. There's a list of things that could have caused that student or myself to get that low grade, right? So let's look at standards-based grading. So based on learning and performance standards, 1 grade entry given per learning goal. Learning goal means here's my standard. Here's how it's been modified for my ability based on my pre-assessment. So when I pre-assessed, I didn't know squat about this next unit. I don't know what she gave me. I got them all wrong. So my learning goal is to first master this. So when I give an assessment, can they show me mastery of that? Yes, there's a grade. All right, now the next learning goal. Those of you who are special ed teachers, you know this so well. I was a former special ed teacher, and I think a lot of this made a lot more sense to me because I had that background knowledge that you're always looking for their learning goals. We set IEPs to learning goals. We set 504s to goals. And the reason we do that is because we want to see how that individual student is performing. You're not grading the class based on how everybody did or a standard scale. You're grading them on how well they did at what you gave them, okay? Traditional scale tends to be on a percentage system, you know, or 90 to 100 or 85%, you got the B. With standards-based grading, you're looking at proficiency-based. Are they advanced? Are they beginning? Are they emerging? Are they, proficient? Traditional scale, you're looking at mixed assessments, achievement, effort, and behavior. Again, behavior is going to be turning in assignments late or not having the proper date on your paper. I've actually met a teacher who gave off 5 points for not writing the date exactly how they wanted it. And I think it's really hard to be a mom right now because sometimes my daughter comes home and I'm like, why? what are you getting out of that? Like, that does not make the kid want to be better. Just circle it next time and say reminder, and that's more likely to get the kid's attention than nailing them for it, or just walk up and ask them. Also, extra credit. Extra credit is not in standards-based grading. I would see, now at the middle school, I saw this more with my elementary teachers. I hate to say this, and I taught elementary for 9 years. And I taught high school, so I've done all the levels. But a kid would bring in school supplies and get 10 points extra credit. What standard is that? Where did you get that standard? I want that standard. I could ace that one any day. It's not a standard. But the kid's grade is now influctuated. I've had, don't use the restroom passes. You get 5 points towards your next assessment. So you're encouraging the child to hold their bladder in efforts to get 5 points cheated on a test that is supposed to show their true knowledge. There's a problem there. Yes? Okay. Those are things that we have to change. Am I guilty of it? 100%. 100%. I used to give out homework passes. And if they didn't use their homework pass throughout the unit, they could cash it in at the assessment time. I did it too. And I would have all these amazing assessment scores because these kids would turn in 6 homework passes. Well, stinking A, I made them 5 points each. So the kid's turning in 30 extra points. They could miss the whole stinking test and still get a C. So you have to reevaluate your thinking. And again, that it's going to be hard. It's a process. okay? But when you're looking at standards-based grading, now you're looking at achievement only, okay? Traditional, I was very guilty of this. Everything went in the grade book, every little thing. Oh my gosh, my grade book would be like 150 assignments on there. It was crazy. Exit tickets and previews and everything was on there. It was too much. And it was hard on me. Oh my gosh, I was dying. I was dying in grading. I would go home and like, oh, I actually took stuff home. Now I don't take anything home. One, because I refuse to. And two, I don't have to. Okay. So a lot more stuff there. Let's get into what we're really doing. Okay. Again, this is just more about points versus standard based points. You know, you have some things worth more points. You know, you have a 10 question assignment, you give it 10 points, right? You have a 20 point assignment or 20 question assignment. Most teachers would say, okay, it's at a 20. Or they go, oh, well, I'll just take that 10 and make them all 2 points each. So now they're the same. It's not like that, friends. Grading should not be like that. You shouldn't say, oh, this assignment's the same worth as this assignment because I'm going to make them both 20 points. The 20 points is irrelevant. Do they understand what they're doing? Are they getting them right? Because they missed 3, you're telling me that they got a D. Well, what part of that question did they miss? Are they getting partial? Are they showing some kind of understanding? All right, and that's where you start to fall into the standard space here. And you'll see how we mentioned here that there is forgiveness built into this grading system. The standards-based grading is meant to forgive. It is a learning process. None of us learn anything right off the bat. And I'm going to use foreign language as an example. You cannot have somebody come up to you, start talking Mandarin, and instantly you're fluent. That just doesn't happen. That's a lot like our kids are going through, especially with math. Math is a foreign language. And these kids look at me like, I have no clue what we're doing. Okay, let me help you. Okay. So then you have tests are based on understanding of key concepts. Again, you want to limit the number of questions. They don't need 50 questions for an assessment. If the standard hits three topics, let's say, 3 subtopics, I would give maybe 3 for each. A high, medium, low, high, medium, low, high, medium, low. And you see which ones are getting correct. Okay, so let's talk about breaking down those standards. This is something I teach my credential students at National University, my teachers, who are going in to get their credential to be a teacher. I teach them how to unpack a standard. Now, again, special ed, they are experts at this. So if you are stuck doing this, go ask a special ed teacher because they can help you. They will sit there and tell you, okay, look at this standard. Yes, yes. Okay, you get the big umbrella standard. All right, the big umbrella standard is this one right here. All right, where it says mark period grade. That's going to be 8GF, statistics and probability, solving problems, blah. Where you're like, okay, a lot of things fall under that category. Yeah, a lot of things do. And then I teach them, break it into 2 sections. Break it into the beginning of what they need to know to operate this and where should they end? Where should they be ending? And then within that, look at those evidence. The evidence pieces, if you ever looked at go to California state standards, you'll see the main head standard, the main topic standard, domain is actually what it's called. And then you'll see the substandards. And that's where it goes like 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. Those substandards, that's your evidence. I want to see evidence of this, 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 this. And again, do you have to choose all of them? No. All right, you could have 2 here. All right, it's totally on what you feel is essential. Plan with your team is very key. Talk to them, say, hey, look, what do you guys think is essential for them to know moving forward? They have to know how to combine like terms, period. All right, then all that other stuff is going to go to the side for right now, and we're going to focus on this for 4 weeks, okay? So this breaks it down, and then you want to look at how long are you going to work on this standard? How are you going to hit these different standards? And that's going to set up your differentiation, okay? Do you see how it still says standard in 2 separate sections, right? Beginning, end. So what I do is I do umbrella 1, standard, those 3 evidence, assess. All right, if they look good, then I move to second umbrella. If they don't look good, we go back to evidence, switch up the evidence a little bit, make some better lessons, maybe give some more reteach, then assess. I don't do the whole thing again. I don't go back to square one. I just go back and tweak some stuff. And then I'll move on to the second of where they should be ending at. All right. Other than that, it's really about just looking at the standard and realizing what you need to know. And forget the pacing guide, forget the other stuff. I know I probably have somebody from the district office looking at me going, no. But you have to work with your kids, your students, not the middle of the road. Okay. So again, here's a little bit of what this looks like. So you see how this one says 1.1, list prime factorization of whole numbers. There's your evidence right there. Can they list prime factorization of whole numbers? You can give a 5-question quiz on that. If they show that they understand most of it, they're at proficient, or what they're at developing or whatever. And I'll go over all those names in a minute. Okay. Then you look at the engagement standards, and this is all behavior. Okay. I believe in this deck, I do have a copy of how I grade behavior and what I give my parents. So when the parents go, why is my kid getting an A, but they're getting an N, needs improvement in behavior? Is my kid like the awful kid behaving in your class? Because that's what they're going to think. They're going to think that the kid's screaming in the class or yelling. No, your kid's very tardy with their work. They're not careful with their assignments and things like that. We need to work on that. Again, I know you guys have this, but you can kind of look through some research here. I just wanted to give you some more research. I do apologize that it is a little blurry there. I'm not sure if my citation popped up on there, but if you want a copy of that one, I can send it to you. When I blew it up, it made it a little blurry. Again, this is implementing the planning model. So how am I going to plan? How am I going to write my lesson plans? How long do I need to take? Again, this is best when done with a team and you're all on the same page. Okay. But I've done it by myself too. And it works where, you know, you just kind of, okay, I'm going to plan this way. I'm going to pre-assess on this day. I'm going to look at the data. I'm going to look at which kids need the most help, which kids can move on, which kids are right in the middle where they should be, but I'm going to try and push them higher. You want to look at formative assessments. Formative assessments are going to be your official assessments, your final grades, okay? I have a little thing here from Edutopia. It says, might be the greatest and best thing you can do for your classroom is it's not done for a grade, all right? Final assessment is, I want to see mastery, okay? It is to see how effective your teaching was, and I know that's sometimes hard to hear, but your grade reflects your instruction. Let's just put it that way, right? If the kids aren't getting it, it's because they're not stupid. I hate to use that word, but a lot of people do. It's because they didn't understand what you were saying, all right? I can get any child of any cognitive ability to understand what I'm saying if I present it in a way that they learn. It's not about teaching what we need to teach. It's about teaching to the way they learn. If you're not getting to them, you need to find out how they learn. Are they kinesthetic? Are they auditory? Do they need more visuals? Do they need more time? Or are they just slower paced? Okay. It is to see where students are in their learning, and it is to see where you go next. Are you moving forward? Do you need to reteach? Now, again, here's your traditional setting, which you all know. And I used to have this poster in my classroom all the time just to tell kids, what does an A mean? Does an A mean I love you and I think you're the best kid in my class? No, an A meant that you understood. But notice it says neat and complete excellent effort. That's behavioral. That should not be in there. Okay. May not be my best effort, not all complete or neat. That should not be part of the grade. But this is what we did and what we sometimes do. So we're going to talk about the power of zeros. Lots of research here by Rick Mermelli. He's talking about how a zero can kill a grade. When you give a child a zero, even if you're putting it in the grade book for a missing, you kill that person's grade. And everybody thinks, oh, it's going to motivate them to be better. No, it doesn't. You not getting paid for a job does not make you want to go back, right? I mean, if you showed up to work every day and you got a paycheck of $0 because they felt that you didn't do the work quite right, yeah, I wouldn't go back. I would say, you guys got some issues with your payroll. I'm going to move on and get another job. That's how kids feel. All right. So when you look here, look at quiz 1, student A got 100, student A over here got 100. So they both 100 on their first quiz. All right. Now student A is getting no punishment. The behavior is taken out. Now I'm not talking they can give it to behavior grade, but it's not affecting their academic. This one here, the student says that they missed the quiz because of a doctor's appointment or extracurricular activities, whatever, but they wound up never coming in to take the test. All right, this teacher gave them a 0 because they weren't there. It wasn't done on their timeline, the teacher's timeline. Quiz 3, they both scored 75. Quiz 4, they both scored 80. I got to get rid of this. Hide. There you go. Sorry, I have to get rid of my controls. There is a citation down here. If you want a copy of this, you can see where I pulled it up. But look at the difference of grades at the end. This child's getting a B according to traditional scale, and this one's getting a D. That 1-0. That 1-0 killed it. Who cares that they missed one quiz? Now, they go to take quiz 3 and they bomb it. You may want to encourage that kid to go back and take quiz 2. Like, hey, you know what? You might want to take quiz 2 because I think there's some things that you missed that maybe you need more time on. Again, here's looking at grades. Look at the ones with the zeros, okay? Looking right across here, we have 59, 69, 79, 89, average C. Average C. Average C. Okay, all right. But look at these last two. Look at number 6 and 7. 0, 98, 98, 99, 100. That child knows what you're teaching. They 100% know what you're teaching. But because they received a 0, they get a C in the class? You're saying they're middle of the road? They're average? No, that kid should be getting an A. Same with number 7, okay? Takes a little shift of the mind. Now, this is the grading scale I actually use. My 4s are my A pluses. My 3.5s are my A's. So these two categories right here, I call them advanced. And then my 3 is a B plus range. 2.5 is a B. 2 is a C. I don't have C plus, I don't have C minus, C. You're there. 1 is a D, 0 is an F. If you really want to switch it over because you have to do alphabetical grading, okay? What does that all mean? I use these words with my students. In fact, I have a stamp that says, I stamp the paper before I put it through the Xerox machine so every kid has a stamp on their paper. When I'm grading it, I don't give them A, B, C, D. I don't give them 9 out of 10. I give them advanced. Do you know how excited kids feel when they see the word advanced? They're like, wow. All right, now that's my 4. Okay, that's my 4. Proficient. Oh, this is my 4 and my, let me go back one slide. There we go. That's right here. These two right here are advanced. Okay, now proficient is my B group. That's going to be my 3 and my 2.5. I only have those 2 groups there because some kids are really high and they get the 4. And some kids are high, they can definitely do it on their own, but they missed a little bit more than I would want, you know, but they still definitely know the skill. They definitely know the skill, okay? But this would be my B, this is my C, my D, and my F. So this would be 2, 1, 0 at the end. Some teachers like to use this format. Exceeds expectations, meets expectations, requires review and reassessment, and not accessible. Unless you're planning on writing all those words out each time, kids sometimes don't even shake a stick anymore at, oh, I got an M. That's like saying they got a C or an A. They learn real quickly. But when they see their wording, you're advanced, you're at proficient, you're beginning. That sounds better than you failed. You're like, you're beginning. You're at step 1. Let's get you to step 2. It's a progress. Let's work on it. And the kids see. And I will tell them, like, my friend, you just went from beginning to developing. Bang, look at you. And their kids are like, what? But when they go from F to C, they're like, oh, I still got a C. But it's about movement, okay? But these are just other examples of ways that other teachers I know in the field who do standards-based grading, what they use. And they've shared with me, or some I've stole from research, okay? Here's another view. This one has 0.5s on every level, okay? They also don't have a 0. Now you're probably thinking, well, Jenny, you just told me not to use zeros because they're grade killers. In my class, a 0 means you're beginning. I don't use a 0 for missing. You missed them all, my friend, you got a 0. Okay, but I don't put a 0 on their paper. I put beginning. You're beginning. Let's work on this. Okay. But some people don't want the 0 at all. They rather have it end with a 1, whichever. Everybody's a little different there. Here's your grade conversion scale. A lot of people always ask me, well, what's your conversion scale, Jenny? This one here is more still kind of, I don't really like this because the percentages are still traditional, really. But they switched it over here with numbers, and I don't get into all these different points personally. I follow more of this colored grade scale chart personally. This one here shows you that an A can go from 100 to an 89.49. I mean, that's really specific, but I would just end it at 89. So if you score, you grade something, and you do have to do a percentage of some sort because your grading system still asks for you to put in some kind of point value. You can put in a 4, and the 4 means that they fell somewhere between 93 and 89. Now that's a big jump for me. That's why I have the 4 and then I have the 3.5. Okay, so my 4 would be just this top row. And then these two would be my 3.5s. Okay, just to kind of show kids, if you get a 4, my friend, you should be teaching this lesson. You made little to no errors. It's amazing. You've mastered this standard. You can teach it. Hands down, you will retain this lesson. Okay, this one is a borrowed one from a friend. This is Miss L's leveled. Again, I'm just giving you some different data to look at. Nobody can ever tell you really how to set up your grade book. So I'm just kind of giving you different ideas of what people have used. Some people do, of course, here's your traditional, just to show you. Some people use a 5-point grading system, where it doesn't have a 0, and some people use a 4-point grading system. 5 would mean exceeds. They'll use words like exceeds, meets, near, below, or no evidence. Again, I try not to use words that are going to completely deflate their balloon. You're below. Thanks. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, or there is no evidence of learning. That does not make me want to be like, hey, but if I say you're beginning, but I can get you higher, come see me, then they're more likely to come see you. So this is a grade scale I used to use with my students. That I actually printed this out as a poster, put it in my classroom. I really liked it, but it just became too many numbers. I really like to have it where it says advanced, proficient, emerging, developing, beginning. And this was too many numbers to kind of fit into those categories, but it worked really good for me. And the kids could see this right away that you've mastered this skill, and it show you remember it. You got it. 4, you proved you definitely understand the skill. So again, this would be my A+, this would be my A, this would be my B+, this would be my B, done. All right, 2 would be my C, D, F. So that was still the same. The only thing I added in was the 2.5, and then I kind of blended it a little bit. So it all, again, you'll tweak your grading scale several times. Don't feel bad. All right, now, yes, I did put in my citizenship grade. This is what I give my parents on how I grade for citizenship. So participation here, their classwork turned in on time. You'll see here that it has 70 to 79% of their work is turned in on time. All right, you don't have to do percentages. I just gave this to my parents. This person's getting a 4 because, and for citizenship, I only did 4, 3, 2, 1. 0 means they didn't exist, I guess. They didn't turn in squat all year. Maybe that one kid would get a 0, but I didn't really want to give 0 for participation unless they physically came into class every day and just put their head down. All right, but if you would like a copy of this, you can, email me. I'll send it to you. But this is just something I quickly made and sent out to my parents just to let them know how their kid was doing. So when the parents saw that they were getting a 2 in participation, and this is how I would set up my grade book. I'd say classwork, participation, device use, because we were a 1-to-1 iPad school. And then, with COVID, we all became 1-to-1 laptops, of course. We all had devices of some sort. So I had to add in a device use that they were using their devices correctly. Okay, they had them with them. They knew how to work them. I wasn't hearing, I lost Wi-Fi every day. Things like that. So Now I'm going to show you some screenshots of people's grade books that they have sent me after I've done these trainings. They've sent me stuff like, hey, am I setting this up right? Friends, again, there's no way of saying yes or no. You're setting it up correctly. But you can see here how it's very easy to look across. Oh, Anna needs some help. She's getting 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then a 3 and then a 2. Okay. You do see some improvement here. I think this person's little clock thing meant it was late, but they didn't take off points, but they did dock that it was late. So when they went to go put in the citizenship grade later down the road, they had something there. Here's another one. This is through a program called Teacher Ease that allowed them to color coordinate it. I love color coordinating. This is mine. So very quickly, I would write the standard that I was assessing. Again, learning goals, right? And I would assign the possible points here. Okay, now most often I have revised this that all of them just get a 4. Possible points are a 4 because I took out the 5. But remember, I told you my old scale had the 5. All right, and this is all in Excel spreadsheets. If you attended Alice Keeler's session earlier today on Google Form or Google Sheets, she is a master at Google Sheets, and you can learn a lot from her. You can get the color to show up in Google Sheets by doing conditional formatting. That's a whole different training, but this is very easy to set up. All right, so you didn't come this far to only come this far. All right, so you made it through. There's most of my training here. You're probably thinking, okay, what's my next step, Jenny? What's my next step? All right, so again, you want to get rid of that traditional grading scale. You want to stop penalizing for behavioral issues. You want to not accept extra credit. Kids will come up to you, is there any extra credit I can do? No, what you can do is fix an old assignment. And then they look at you like, oh man, I actually have to do an assignment? Yeah. But you're not going to go get me school supplies and automatically get an A in my class. Your grade should reflect your knowledge. Kind of like a rating. I'm sure many of us buy things online and you look at the rating and like, wow, that person got a 5-star rating or that product. You want to know that that's legit. It's not because they gave some incentive like, hey, if you give me a 5-star rating, I'll send you a coupon. You don't want to know that they did stuff like that. And that's how you cheat the system there. Here's just a quick little notes on what is standards-based grading. Again, just to give you some more research that you guys can read to keep you from having to buy the book or books. There's lots of books. Okay, this one's by Christine Nananani. Great ideas about how to break down those standards. Scales that you can use, some wordage you can use in your syllabus for this next year to give to parents so they understand what standards-based grading is. My first year, I had more parents so confused. They were like, well, is my kid getting an A? Your kid's advanced. So I would usually mean that's A, yeah. Your kid's usually around developing. So not necessarily, but we're gonna work on it. Okay, you wanna look at Marzano's scale here about how they set up their standards-based grading. Again, I don't like that the 50% is at a 0. To me, if they got half the problems correct, that means they understand half the standard. Half the standard, half of a scale is a C. That's just me. Again, this kind of just walks you through what a level 1 looks like, a level 2, a level 3, and a level 4. I'm trying to give you guys some wordage that you can use with your parents or your team when you go back to the school site and you say, hey, look, I think we should try and implement this. I think it's fairer grading. I think we can truly use data to see how our kids are going to perform at the end of the year on the assessments. I think we can use this to really communicate to the parents what they know and what they don't know. And once I implemented this, parents would say, well, where are they hurting the most? And I can look right at the standard and go, they don't know this standard. My special ed teachers would call me up, has your student mastered this standard or met this standard? They have an IEP coming up. And I would say, yeah, they got 4 in that section. They're mastered. It was easy. I didn't have to go back and, oh man, did I teach that? You know, I'm not looking at the name of the assignment. I'm looking at the standard. And the standard is what I titled my assignments in my grade book, like I showed you just a few minutes ago on that Excel sheet. All right, and I know I'm getting close on time here, so Liliana, stop me if I'm getting over time. But again, here is your standard. This is what a learning goal looks like. And these are your I can statements. I'm gonna tell you, I got all my I can statements off of Teachers Pay Teachers. I didn't make them. I can round numbers up to 1 million. Can the student show proof of that? Master that goal, master that standard. That's your substandard. And then you can look at the other pieces of this. All right, you want to make sure you create clear assessments. You want to make sure that your assessment aligns to the standard. Can you throw spiral review in there? Yes, but make sure that doesn't go toward their final grade for the one standard. Okay, if you're grading them on prime factorization and you throw in multiplication tables, those are two different standards. So you can give them a grade for the prime factorization, and then you can give them points toward that section of spiral, if that makes sense. So it goes down as two separate grades. All right, so the benefit to standards-based grading is that it drives instruction and helps teachers to differentiate. When you see where the student is struggling, you can pinball the actual standard that they're hurting on. You can differentiate them, and you don't have to differentiate for every single student. I have 250. Do you think they all got a separate assignment? No. But what I was able to do is see commonalities. These 5 kids all suffer on this one standard, so I'm going to hit them with that one standard. I'm sure that one kid, he suffered from all of them. Okay, he just doesn't have no clue what's going on. And that's okay. I'm going to work with him later. But right now, I'm going to hit them hard with this standard. This group, they got it. They just need to improve a little better. They made simple errors. This group over here mastered it. You know what I'm doing? I'm giving them the next grade level. So I teach 8th grade. I'm going to find that vertical standard in 9th grade, and that's what they're working on. And I had students who were my high students coming up to me going, Miss Guyford, this is hard. Yeah, I'm finally making you think. Okay, and they're like, this is 9th grade math. I'm like, yeah, it is. It is the standard, but at a 9th grade level. I'm challenging you, my friends, because what I gave you was too easy. You mastered it on a pre-assessment. Oh man, you know this. All right, so again, constantly using that assessment to drive your instruction. And again, these are just more examples of how to set up your grade book and ways that you can look at how scores are affected. Again, put the standard in as your assignment. Okay, don't put the name of the title. Don't put, you know, now if you don't have to write the whole thing out, if you're good with like 8G42, whatever, you can put that. Okay, if you're gonna forget what the heck that standard was, write it out. Okay. All right, and again, these are just other ways of looking for the quality feedback to students, knowing that they understand what a 4 means, knowing that they understand what a 3 means, or where they placed. But ultimately, my friends, you got this. You totally got this, okay? It's not that hard, but if you need some research, these are the 3 books that I focused on. They were amazing. My favorite here is the standards-based grading, the one on the left here. And the other 2 were just, once I read that first one, the other 2 just was an easy breeze read because I was like, oh yeah, I already read that. Oh yeah, it makes sense. So here's some great research of what I have learned over this process. And I do hope and encourage that maybe I changed some of your minds today. Hopefully I didn't make anybody like totally want to, you know, throw the computer across the room at me, but there you go. And again, if you want to email me privately and get some more information, I know I went through this kind of fast because we are on a time schedule. I encourage you to email me. People email me all the time asking for more information, or can I have a copy of that one poster you put up in your room for the kids? Or how would you, you know, people have sent me their syllabus. Does this sound good, you know, for the parents? Does it make sense? Let me know. I've been there and I did it on my own. And now that I have a team of people that I've helped at my former school site, and I hope to get them here at my new school site on the wordage and how to actually grade, I saw a huge improvement with all my learners. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so I can come and I need to get my controls back. How do I get my controls back? All right, so Liliana, I'm sure there's probably some questions out there. So I'm gonna stop sharing. All right. So thank you guys so much. Oh my gosh, there's 15 people. Oh, 15 comments. I'm like, oh my gosh. All right. Oh, I I'm happy. I see a couple good notes. Thank you, Jessica. Such a great and inspiring way to reach our students. Thank you. I want my students to feel empowered and I want them to feel motivated to learn. And that is my key. And so I had to realize that we really need to switch our grading systems to standards-based to eliminate those teachers who grade based on behavior. And I can tell you, my child is in school and it's hard when I see the report card come and I'm like, why are they getting that grade? And I call up the teacher. Oh, well, you know, she didn't write her name neat enough. Oh, okay. Well, I know a lot of people who don't write neat. They're called doctors. And those are very educated people. So let's give them help, you know, let's not ding them for every little thing. You know, you want, and again, we're building those relationships. You'll hear a lot of educators say, I'm working on the SEL. Yeah. Well, what builds relationships faster than encouraging them to be better than what they are and helping them? So, oh, thank you, Michael. That was very nice. I'm glad it was the best session of the day. Are you looking for extra credit, Michael? Because you got some. All right, just don't tell anybody. All right, are there any questions I can answer? Feel free to unmute. I love talking to people versus just talking to myself.
I have a question.
Go for it.
So, sorry, I'm looking over the grade book that you had, specifically yours.
Yes.
So the top section that said Q1 in purple, one of them says fractions.
Okay.
That's based off a standard, correct?
Yes, that's the unit.
That's the unit. So my question would be then, if you're giving somebody a 4, are you basing the 4 off of one assessment or are you basing it off the entire unit?
Very good question. So my homework, classwork, all of that is called practice.
Right.
And I played sports my whole life. I even coach sports. So when we go to practice, I play softball. When I go to practice, I'm going to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. I'm going to miss the ball. I'm going to get yelled at by the coach. I'm going to have to run laps, whatever, right? But when it comes to game day, does that mean that coach is not going to play me because I did so bad in practice? No, they're probably going to chalk it up to, okay, you had a bad day. Here's the game. Make it count. So I tell kids when assessment day comes, there's your game day. So all that practice is just practice. And what I would do is give them verbal feedback. Again, this helps with doing my math stations that I use where I could walk around and give them that feedback and help them one-on-one and be there while they teach, but while they learn. But if you can't have that set up, just making sure that you go around, if you're using Google Classroom, you can very quickly give some quick feedback, letting them know, hey, you're working on it, you're progressing. Mm-hmm. Now, I would look at all their practice. If all their practice is looking good, I would assume they're going to get that 4 on the assessment. And when they get the 4, then I know you've mastered it. You're done. Okay. Does that mean they have to stop while the rest of the kids catch up? No, now I'm going to bump them up like the other kids. I'm going to say, hey, here's the same standard, but I'm going to move you up to the next grade level and do some vertical teaming that way. And then they are still working on the unit. They are still working on fractions, but they're working at fractions on the next grade level. So maybe it's mixed fractions. Maybe it's, you know, the next step up and encouraging them to keep doing better. Okay. But that's a great question. Now, some people in standards-based grading, again, most of my grades were those assessments, as you saw, because it was the standard 4, the standard 3, the standard 2. Those were the final assessments. Now, the kids can go back and revisit those scores at any time. And again, I did give a deadline because I'd have kids in June want to redo something in January. And I'm like, oh my goodness, friend.
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of my concern is, you know, there's a lot of kids out there with testing anxiety. And if you put so much pressure on that one test, right. I see there's quite a few that you have here. So that's, you know, good. And if they're able to go back and have deadlines, I think that's good too. So, all right, cool.
But I would tell them you have to have it done by report card times. Like, you know how we do like progress reports a certain amount of weeks?
Right.
I would say if there's any assessment you want to go back and revisit, even if it's not in our current unit, it has to be done before the progress report comes out. After the progress report, we're moving on. And I know even that's against like the standards-based grading rules.
Right.
I had to set limits with 250 kids. I was like,
Yeah, absolutely. No.
You know, but yeah, great question. Great question.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anyone else have any questions? All right.
Jennifer, I did, and again, just actual application as again, we're trying to move towards this. So, you know, like student who just never ever takes a test, or like never ever does any of their work. Like, you didn't say you put like a 0 in for them during that time. I know we use the ARIES system, and once you mark everything as graded, even if you leave it blank as missing, it still counts it as a 0 towards the grade.
Yeah, that's a part of the grading systems that I wish were remodified. We used Q in Coronel Norco. One grading system I'm looking into is called Otis. And it allows you to do standards-based grading. If I do have any district people here online, Otis is something you might want to look into because it allows the teachers to do traditional or standards-based. If you were talking, Michael, about a student who physically comes to school and does nothing, that's a child who needs intervention. That's before you get to that point where you physically have to give that kid a 0, just have a log of all the communication you've had with that kid, with that parent, with the counselor. Why is this kid physically coming to school and falling asleep at their desk every day and not doing anything? And you will have some kids, unfortunately, one. I hope you only have one. You know what I mean? I've had them where they came in and they just said, I'm just here because my mom makes me get out of the house. All right. And I'll call parents and parents are like, I don't really care. I'm like, okay. Very unfortunate. That might be something you call CPS on later down the road, but ultimately that kid would get a 0. Yeah. If it's that extreme, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I also have a question. Thank you so much. This was very helpful. But you said that where do you document your behavioral stuff? Like, that you say you give them an N or.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm looking at your grade book and I don't see where, because if I'm going to work with my team, I just want to make sure I have some.
Okay, good question. That is my academic grade book. My screenshot's my academic grade book. I would have a separate one for citizenship. Because the two should not blend. Because if you put behavior in the same Excel spreadsheet as your academics, the math behind it when you set up your functions is going to average that in. So I would have two separate Excel sheets down at the bottom. You know how you can have two different sheets? Yeah. And so I pull up my grade book and I would do sheet 1 was academics, sheet 2 was citizenship. And so they literally went down as two separate grades on the report card.
Got it. That makes way more sense. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Of course, yeah. Good question. You can always write little notes to yourself in Excel spreadsheet too. You could right click and insert a comment just for yourself, because I didn't share my grade book, the whole thing, like what you see with my parents, of course, because they can't see all the students' information. But I would right click, and when you do that, you get a little box at the bottom of the cell. Mm-hmm. And that would tell me that there was, I wrote myself a note that this assignment was 3 weeks late. Okay, now I'm giving them the true honest grade, but I'm writing that this one particular assignment took them 3 weeks. And that might be a conversation piece at parent conference time. Like, what happened? Why did that take them 3 weeks extra to get done? And just so I always have that logged information.
That makes sense. Thanks so much. So you do have an Excel sheet, not like in ARIES.
Right.
That's like your ARIES or something. But
right. Okay. And then what I would do is I kept my Excel sheet. And then when it came time, now in Coronel Norco, where I came from, we had to have so many grades in the computer after so many days of teaching. And so that way the parents could see live updates, right? So what I would do is I would put in my first quiz, I would just start putting in the assessment grades. And then at the end, I would make sure that it averaged out to what I had on my Excel sheet. So, but the parents would see 4, 4, 4, 4, but I told the grade book that a 4 was a 90%. And so it would automatically show that it was an A.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, it takes some tweaking.
Yeah, and some
all these grading systems, they're hard. That's why I'm actually looking into Otis. I talked to the guy about getting a personal license just so I could try it out. So I didn't have to do all the math.
I just wish it would come more.
Last thing we want to do is more math.
Yeah, I just wish the push would come more from the district, so we all feel more confident to do such things. But yeah.
Yes, and because it's so much easier for my special ed teachers to see advanced. Oh, this kid's doing great in math. But when they see A, again, there's so many biases that fall into grades these days that it's hard to get a true evaluation of this child's academic abilities. And that makes it very hard for my special ed teachers. And that's where I come from. That's my background. And when I would say a kid's getting a C, and I'm looking at the kid and I'm working with them, I'm like, how the heck did you get a C? My friend, we are working on 2-digit addition, and you're supposed to be working on, polynomials. I mean, there's no way you're a C student. Why are you getting a C? And then I contact the previous teacher, and there's, oh, well, we were told not to give anything less than a C for special ed. Oh, Lord, my friend, I need academic, achievement. I need to know what I'm dealing with right from the start, not 4 weeks down the road when I realize you lied on your report card. Basically, when when I attach my name to a grade, I can tell you with a firm face that child is a C.
And that's why it just looks amazing, because I have pushing students, a lot of pushing students, and I work with a special ed teacher, and she's like, well, go should I work on? So it's kind of hard sometimes to remember from 150, well, I have about 160 students to remember what math goal they should be working on.
Right.
I can see it being amazing. So I just can't wait to implement and see where it takes
me. And I literally divided my groups into 3, to be honest, 3 categories, right? Struggling, middle that need to be pushed, and my high that need to be challenged. And every pre-assessment, every unit, so every unit got a pre-assessment. One kid could be an advanced in one unit, like they nailed that unit. Their teacher, obviously before me, hit that unit hard and they got it, right? Well, now here comes the next unit and they're in struggling now. But the kids never knew. Again, this is going into my other training where I do trainings on stations. The kids never knew where they were. That's all just in my head. They would think everybody was doing the same thing. I would make their work look identical, right? I mean, in all honesty, it looked on the same paper, a lot of stuff through technology and Google Classroom, I'd push it through. But if you really looked at it closely, one kid's getting a lot easier numbers, because I'm just testing the standard. I'm not testing, if they've memorized their multiplication skills. I'm testing, do they know prime factorization, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna use smaller numbers. Just give them the smaller numbers. I'm testing the standard. Start small. And then work them up, don't give them the hard stuff and then go down and then go back up. That doesn't make any sense. That's like a fad diet, right? I'm gonna start real hard and, run 6 miles every day. Well, that lasted about 2 days. I'm done. Because now you're sore and you can't move. So I always try to apply it to real life stuff with the kids and stuff. So. All right. I got a question here. How many assessments on average would you give in a quarter or semester? 4, usually. I would try to hit 1 for each evidence. And then, so there's 3. And then those would be like your quizzes. Now, here's my deal with my grading. I didn't really go over this because this is something I personally do. You won't read this much in the literature. Let's say I give 3 quizzes and then a final assessment of standard mastery. Okay. If those 3 assessments, because again, quizzes are considered, you're still learning. That's your practice. You're still showing improvement. Game day is that final test. So let's say they have a C, a D, and a D on those quizzes. But come time for the actual test, they pull off a B. Those quizzes are gone. They're gone. The kid knows it. They're getting the B. Because if I averaged all those together, the kid's still getting a C. But no, at the final count, at the final day, they showed me I got this. They may have come in for tutoring. They may have gotten extra help. They may have watched my videos a million times. By the way, I'm on YouTube. I have way too many math videos. But my kids would go on. I say, go back and watch my video. Go back and watch my video. Because I did the whole flipped classroom thing. And because we all learn at different speeds. Some, in real life, kids can't rewind you and fast forward you. But on a video, they can. And so if I saw that they were trying and trying and trying, I'm not going to give them the C because that's what it averages out to. It's not about the math. It's about the end goal. And the end goal is, do they get it? Ultimately, at the end, do they get it? Now, have I had a student start off high and go low? Of course. Of course. And that tells me, are you getting lazy on me? Did you cheat? On the pre-assessment? I kind of look at them like, who were you sitting next to? Things like that. And then that's when you pull that student aside by themselves and go, let's talk. But that only happens with maybe like 2 or 3 kids out of my whole onset. And once you do it to a couple kids, word gets out. Like Miss Geiferd's gonna catch you if you do something wrong. They're gonna catch you. She's gonna see it. And then they're like, Oh, all right. Well, I'm like, dude, just be honest. You get it or you don't. I don't care. I'm here to help.
I kind of have a question that jumps off of that one is, let's say you have a student who is like, I teach science, so it's hard for me to like just have assessments if assessments are only tests, but in our world, assessments are also labs. But if they're doing great on every assessment that is hitting that standard, but you get to like the exam at the end of the unit and they bomb those questions, what is your approach to that? And everyone's going to have their own approach to that, but like, do you just give them the average? Do you, take their best score?
I make them do it again.
Okay.
I would tell them, I'm not sure what happened, my friend. Maybe you misunderstood the directions, and you coach them. You call them in. You say, hey, what happened? This is not you. You know what? I bet you if we review this together, you're going to do better next time. And the kid looks at you and you're like, yeah, I can. All right, let's do better. Come in after school or at lunch, whenever your office hours are, and say, sit with me. I want to go over the ones you got wrong. Now, I have done oral exams for my special ed kids or kids who just struggle with test anxiety. Some kids rather just have you talk to them. Or I'll give them a math problem on a whiteboard, the same problem on the test. I'm not making anything, they're not getting anything different. They're getting the same test, but sometimes just having it in a more friendlier setting. Now, I know it takes a lot of time out of our day. We are teachers, and I know we do have lives to some degree. But throwing that extra help out for those few students means the world. And they're not always going to need you every single time like that. But if you start off like, hey, come in after school. I see that this test kind of caught you off guard, but I have a feeling you can do it. I would put them on, on a desk in front of me, whiteboard them, make them work it out through the whiteboard. I look at it. Yep, you got it. Let's go. Next one. And just showing them a problem by problem. Oh my gosh, they totally get it. But seeing it all on a sheet, they're like, and there's other kids and there's kids getting up and they're turning it in and I'm not done yet. And it's just,
Gotcha.
And that's why I always tell kids, you fail it, who cares? Who cares? Now, I'm going to be honest. I did have some smart ones who would fail it just so they can see what the test looked like so they can redo it and get an A. You catch on to those two. You're like, really? What's going on here? And then again, you have that personal conversation and they back off.
Thanks.
These are great questions, of course. Great questions. All right. Any other questions I can help with? I know many of you need to, get going. We are the last session of the day, which is kind of cool.
I did have a follow-up on just, with standards-based, if only the assessments are really what's counting towards their grade, some students just maybe lack the intrinsic value of the practice and just choose not to do it, or just choose not to take notes if turning in their notes isn't something that goes towards their grade. So how have you how have you handled those situations or those kinds of students where, if it's not for a grade, I don't have to do it. Especially, I teach a secondary high school. So
they catch on to that real quick, don't they?
Yeah.
Now that's just personally how I set up my grade book. Okay. And that's kind of what the literature does. But when I first started teaching standards-based grading, I did still put in informal assessments. Your informal assessment could be your notes, how well you're taking notes, how well your notes are detailed. Okay. So there's no right or wrong, to be honest. The only thing the wrong part would be adding that behavior to your academic grade. But if you consider notes to be proof of evidence that they understand and show mastery, then put it in there for sure, especially if they're writing their own notes. Now, if they're just simply copying off the board, that's a behavior grade, to be honest. Behavior is, can you copy from the board? Yes. There's nothing academic there. There's no standard that says, can you copy from the teacher? But if you are telling them, especially at high school, hey, let's look at this next unit on imperialism, right? I want you to read the textbook. I want you to write down some detailed notes, your own notes, blah, blah, blah. And that's a grade. Your grade will be based on how well you can explain to me in your own words what you read. That is completely an assessment. Yes, put it in the grade book. And you can have multiple things in the grade book like that. And that's fine, as long as it ties back to showing proof to you as an educator that they know what they're talking about. Now, the reason I took homework out of it was because I saw a lot of kids who would meet up at lunchtime and just copy each other's homework. So nothing went home in my class. I eliminated homework, which most of my parents were like, with secondary math, they're like, bless you, thank you, because we don't know what we're doing. I wanted true validity in grades. You do it in front of me. You do it in front of me in the classroom. Nothing goes home. And the kids would say, Miss Geifert, I didn't finish. Can I do it at home? No. You can come in at lunch or after school. And then I have teachers say, well, they didn't finish half the assignment. How do I grade that? Good question. You haven't finished it. You make them finish it. It's not a grade until they finish it because you don't have enough data there. Let's say the first 3 questions they totally get. They got them all right, but they didn't do the last 3 questions. Do they deserve a 4? No. You don't have enough evidence. So you need to tell them, I need to see what you truly know. I can't see how you're learning or you're progressing in my class unless you finish this. And then they go, all right, fine. Now, there are times if a kid truly cannot come after school or at lunch because of extracurricular activities or parent pickup or whatever, you're going to run into that. Then I would just ask them during class, hey, can you go to that back table real quick? Can you finish this for me? Because it really means a lot to me to see how you're progressing. I want to see how you're growing in the class. And then they're like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm helping you. I can't say I'm helping you if I don't know how you're doing. And then they kind of catch you, especially at secondary. They're like, okay, this person really cares. To me, it's not, I want to give you a grade and I'm going to, I didn't give that many assignments that they would feel drained. I would say, look, this one means a lot to me. I need you to get it done. And it should mean a lot to you. So, but to come back to your question, Michael, in all honesty, you put in your grade book what you feel is worthy. There's no right or wrong. It's as long as you can say with a straight face that it shows standard mastery, that they are learning what you're teaching. They're showing proof of that. You can use it as evidence in court kind of thing. Put it in there. Put it in there. And I did that for my first 2 years, to be honest. And then I just kind of got more flexible with how I grade practice, how I, see how they're progressing. Now, if they're not doing well on unit tests, I would have them revisit it and things like that. And I would really try to push them to reach their learning goals.
Thank you for that. I mean, I know I even had meetings with admin and parents where actually this happened to be a special ed student who only did maybe 35% of the assignment. And instead of having him, I wanted him to finish the assignment, kind of like, yeah. I understand you're saying, but even my admin was just like, just give them that 35% or whatever of what they did kind of thing. And kind of hit me wrong and stuff because you're talking about honesty, versus quality, all that. Yeah,
and if that was the case, I mean, your admin's kind of suggesting it. You could follow their advice, or I would just tell the admin, I'm just going to eliminate this assignment from their grade book. I'm not dinging this kid because they didn't finish the assignment. I'd rather just say they didn't need that assignment. I'm just going to excuse them from it. And let's see what they academically know. Excuse them from that 1 grade. I'm sure you have more than just 1, but instead of dinging their grade and making them show lower because they didn't finish, just excuse it, get out of there and average what they have shown you in completion, so.
Thank you.
Bossy, you're on here. Oh, Miss Aldavud, she is a teacher friend of mine at my old school. She wrote, transforms ed students. You're so sweet. Thank you, honey. Yeah, I really try to make it work toward my teachers and my special ed students. So I know we're getting close on time, my friends, and my battery's about to die. So email me. I'll drop my email in here again, just real quick, if anybody needs it. And throw those questions at me. Let your brain kind of understand this and then email me. Because once you walk away, you're going to go like, oh, I should have asked this. We all do that, right? Especially at interviews where you're like, oh, I should have said that. Email me and I'll be more than happy to help you guys out in any way. So I'm going to say we're done. Have a great day. And thank you so much for all the thank yous. I appreciate it. Bye, guys. Liliana, are you still on? All right, I think she left. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. You guys have a great day.